Please sit down. Thank you. Come, guys. Thanks very much for coming. This is a wonderful day for me personally, and I hope will signal a very, very good day for the nation. As some of you may know, the President has put together a task force on climate preparedness and resilience, a task force on climate change, and he has asked me to serve as one of the governors, a select group of governors, to aid and assist with other local and state and tribal leaders across the country in making recommendations to him with regard to climate change, preparedness, and resilience, to help establish what both the policies and the programs will be for meeting the challenge of climate change. It will include federal agencies working together with those of us who have been chosen on the task force to come up with a set of proposals and recommendations in rapid order. And I am delighted to have the opportunity to utilize the experience that I gained in 20 years of service on the Resources Committee of the United States Congress and, of course, the Armed Services Committee to combine that experience and background with my duties as governor to aid and assist the President in his quest to meet the challenges of climate change. In that regard, I have a particular advantage in terms of what we can bring to the task force table. And with William Island, William Isla's background with the Department of Land and Natural Resources, his approach to ecosystem-based climate change adaptation, healthy INA and reefs equal resilient communities. I think we'll have a voice on that task force that will be listened to and found more than credible in terms of the recommendations that can come forward. Our Rain Follows the Forest initiative is unique in the country. Our coastal lands and beach erosion programs, adaptation to rising sea levels, at least the prospect of it, mapping and hazard mitigation tools, he's very, very, of course, well qualified to do. Jesse Suki is in charge of our statewide climate change adaptation priority guidelines already from the Office of Planning. The Office of Planning's coordination efforts with county, state, and federal agencies already in implementing Act 286, which was the statewide climate change guidelines bill, makes him uniquely qualified to assist me in making a presentation on a national and even international level. His Ocean Resources Management Plan here in the state of Hawaii, I think, will also be adaptable. And finally, this is the debut. I was kidding Jackie. This is the unveiling of Jackie Kozak-Thiel, our new state sustainability coordinator. She's going to coordinate multiple levels of government and private-public partnerships in a collaborative way to address these very, very complex issues of climate change. I can't think of anybody more capable and more dedicated than Jackie. She helped lead the way for our participation in the international engagement, the Majuro Declaration on Climate Leadership and Global Island Partnership. And of course, she will take the coordinating capacity and jurisdiction that's been assigned to her with regard to interaction and intra-action of state, county, and nonprofits as well, and bring that to the forefront. So come up and make their presentations, and then we'll be happy to take some questions with regard to how the task force will work. We will be passing out some information to you, questions about the task force, how it will operate, and so on. And I'm really, really looking forward to taking full advantage of the President's confidence in me and in the others who have been named to the task force to come forward with recommendations that can establish the United States as the leader in climate change preparedness. So, William?
Thank you. Aloha and good morning, everyone. First of all, I'd like to thank the President because there's no governor that is more forward-thinking, that is more intense about the future regarding climate change and resiliency than Governor Neil Abercrombie. He's made it one of his first acts since taking office. He's certainly made it a priority for the Department of Land and Natural Resources. And as you who have been following the Rainfall is the Forest initiative understand that we are moving forward. We're not waiting. So since the governor has taken office, on the ground we've had more than 22,000 acres of priority watershed areas fenced, ungulates removed, and they're well on their way to healing and becoming the sponge for future rainfall intrusion into the ground and groundwater availability for our residents and our tourists, and more importantly, our grandchildren. In addition, we've in one particular project, I want to highlight one particular project, the Mauna Kea Restoration Project. Since the inception of the Rainfall is the Forest, we've had more than 19,000 trees planted on the slopes of Mauna Kea, which will ensure that ecosystems are restored as well as future watershed protection is put into place. With regards to our reefs, the governor is once again, way ahead of everyone else. The Department of Land and Natural Resources is in the process right now of refurbishing the Anuenue hatchery down on Sand Island, and one of the major projects that we are actively pursuing right now and creating is a coral reef nursery, and that's to deal with climate change and to identify corals that have the greatest chance in Hawaii of surviving and keeping the genomes handy for future outplanting. So we are not waiting. The state of Hawaii, with the governor's leadership, is moving. With regards to beach erosion, as many of you know, the currents are changing. Climate change is here in Hawaii right now. We have many beaches that have not eroded in historical times that are now eroding in areas that we have not seen before and at rates that we have not seen before. The Office of Coastal and Conservation Lands, along with Jesse at State Planning, we've already worked very hard to create a coastal hazard mitigation guidebook that the governor mentioned. I'm sure that other states are going to be very interested in the progress that we've made and will adapt some of the policies and adapt some of the procedures that we've put into place. We are embarking with a new effort with the University of Hawaii to develop maps that will demonstrate shoreline changes and vulnerability so that we can provide to counties so that they can take into their planning for future setbacks as we deal with ocean erosion and the effects of climate change. So Hawaii is proud to be part of the governor's nomination. This is an opportunity for Hawaii to be a national leader as an island state. We have unique challenges, we have unique solutions, and I'm sure that the nation will be happy to learn of the initiatives that we have here and adopt some of the strategies that we've set into place. And with that, I would like to introduce Jesse. Aloha.
Hello, I'm Jesse Suki. I'm the Director of the State Office of Planning. I'd like to thank the President and his administration again for recognizing the value that Hawaii can add to this global and national discussion on climate adaptation. The Office of Planning is the lead agency for Hawaii's State Planning Act and the Coastal Zone Management Program. This requires our office to coordinate with various agencies, government, and communities to increase the effectiveness of government and private actions ensure the wise use of Hawaii's resources, and guide future development on the state from a statewide perspective. At the direction of the governor and through his New Day plan, the office has pursued climate adaptation policies to build coastal resilience. The governor stated in his New Day plan, to be good stewards for the future generations, we must ensure Hawaii is able to withstand the impacts from climate change. So this is something that was recognized early on in the administration. Hawaii is the only state with both statewide greenhouse gas reduction and climate change adaptation policies. Act 286, signed by the governor in 2012, provides statewide climate change adaptation priority guidelines for addressing the impacts of climate change. It stands on the shoulders of past efforts such as Act 234 in 2007, which set the goal of reducing greenhouse gases at or below Hawaii's greenhouse gas emission estimates in 1990 by 2020. The climate change adaptation policy recognizes that even if we were to completely reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, we would still need to address the impacts from climate change in the future. The climate change adaptation policy is integrated into Hawaii's planning system. It was developed with the support of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and the Army Corps of Engineers, in coordination with federal, state, and county participation, as well as input from the community, not-for-profits, the private sector, and academia. The Office of Planning is now focusing on integrating the climate change adaptation policy. We're helping state and county partners make strategic, incremental changes to ensure that future generations can avoid, minimize, mitigate, or benefit from our changing climate. Integration of Hawaii's climate change adaptation policy seeks to inform state and county decision-making, particularly in the areas of capital improvement and long-term investments in infrastructure, long-range planning, how and where communities grow, private decision-making by providing best management practices, solutions, and cost-effective alternatives, and eventually, perhaps, regulatory solutions where appropriate. This requires building partnerships among regulators, users of the regulatory system, and decision makers, and I think that this task force will help advance those causes. As an example of coordination, our recent Ocean Resources Management Plan, which was signed by our governor, provides a framework for actions for statewide integration for ocean and coastal resource management. The state of Hawaii has over 1,000 miles of coastline, with a vast majority of communities located therein. Much of Hawaii's economy and its unique cultures depend on coastal resources. Hawaii is acutely aware, as we've seen in the recent media, of the real impacts from coastal storm events and the potential impacts from sea level rise. The multi-agency, multi-jurisdictional statewide ocean resources management plan addresses sea level rise in 2 of its management priorities for the next 5 years. And it provides goals, objectives, policies, and actions that the state agencies can take, and it identifies potential partnerships for achieving those results. All of these plans and activities can be found on our website at planning.hawaii.gov, and we look forward to continuing our work on behalf of the governor in coordination with all of our partners. And now I'll introduce Jackie Kozak-Thiel.
I'd also like to start by saying mahalo nui to President Obama for his selection and giving Hawaii the opportunity to have a voice by appointing our governor to his task force. I also want to say mahalo nui to Governor Abercrombie for the opportunity to serve in this role and dedicate my efforts to this very important issue for our state. I'm thrilled and deeply honored to be the state sustainability coordinator. And really, I'm guided by our state's official definition of sustainability. It's called the People's Definition from the Hawaii 2050 Sustainability Planning Process. And basically it says that we need to strike a balance between our economic, social, and environmental priorities so that we meet the needs of current and future generations. This definition always reminds me that we must take an integrated approach when facing complex challenges like climate change that are going to impact our state's sustainability. I really see my role as helping to support the existing amazing efforts that are happening across our state and in our counties, and to help build greater collaboration through my role as state sustainability coordinator. And really that's to make sure that climate change mitigation and adaptation are happening hand in hand. So that as we mitigate climate change through our ambitious targets to energy transformation and reducing greenhouse gas emissions, we're also making sure that we're making strategic investments in adaptation so that our cultural and natural resources, our built environment and infrastructure, our food and transportation systems are resilient in the face of climate change. So I'm really looking forward to helping to develop and foster public-private partnerships at multiple levels of government and across the sectors that I think it's really going to take all of us working together to face climate change. I've only been on the job for a little over a week, but as the governor mentioned, I had the wonderful opportunity to be part of a really exciting process of helping to facilitate Hawaii signing on to the Majuro Declaration for Climate Change. And that was an outcome of the Pacific Islands Forum and was presented to the UN Secretary General last month. And Hawaii was actually the first subnational government to sign on as a climate leader to the Majuro Declaration, and we received enthusiastic support from U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry's Climate Office. And I really think that support came with the recognition that Hawaii can and already is playing an important national and international role on climate change. Internationally, Hawaii has joined the Global Island Partnership, standing with other islands who are on the front lines of climate change like we are here. And as island leaders are facing climate change through sharing innovative approaches like many of the ones that Jesse and William mentioned, and making ambitious commitments like the governor has from day one. I think the governor's appointment to the task force is a tremendous opportunity for Hawaii to further our national leadership on climate change. And the governor's participation really positions Hawaii to share our unique needs and perspectives and elevate them to a federal level. The task force is meant to give recommendations on tools and resources, and with Hawaii's participation through the governor, we're going to make sure that those tools and resources help to serve our local efforts and make sure that our communities are better equipped and prepared for the changes that we know are already here and are going to continue to come our way. I'm so excited about this opportunity, and I think all of us are ready and willing to support the governor in any way he needs in this role. Even though our islands are extremely vulnerable to climate change, I truly believe that we can build a sustainable and resilient future. And this appointment to President Obama's Climate Change Resilience Task Force is a pivotal step in that direction. Mahalo.
Isn't she great? Huh? William and Jesse are okay, but Jackie's just great. The task force, as you can see, is going to be well served by these three folks. We will be active. I wanted them to come here today and share with you some of the things we are doing, have been doing, will be doing, and who's doing it, because we're going to reach out right away to the task force and indicate to them where we think we might be able to be useful. Some of the proposals and programs that we have underway, how they may affect everything from heat waves, droughts, wildfires. You see all these things going on here and across the country. So climate change is possibly an impact in all of that. So we're going to be reaching out to the task force, saying, here's what we're prepared to give in terms of participation. Here's some of the directions we'd like to move in. For those who have not had a chance to look through it, the other governors that are associated with the task force are all friends of mine, I'm happy to say, people I've gotten to know through the Governors Association. Some I knew before. Governor Inslee of Washington was my colleague in the House of Representatives. Martin O'Malley of Maryland has been my friend and someone that I've had the occasion to deal with for many years because he's the governor of Maryland, right outside Washington. We've met. I've known Jerry Brown of California over the years and his various manifestations, governor and attorney general and of California, and governor again now. Eddie Calvo from Guam, of course, is a good friend of all Pacific Islanders. and the other folks that are there. Pat Quinn from Illinois, Pete Shumlin from Vermont, Jack Markell of Delaware. Excellent administrators, wonderful folks, good friends. I know we're going to be able to work very, very well together, and I know that each of them will bring people from their states to the table in a way that will be just as positive as the contribution I know Hawaii is going to make. So, with that, I'd like to take any questions or answer any observations, and if I don't know something, I'll probably refer you to the task force, because we are literally just getting it underway.
Every state has an impact from climate change, but many of us would fight that Hawaii, being surrounded by water, is impacted much more than, say, other states.
Yes.
How important is it for our state to have a voice on this task?
Well, it's interesting. When I talked to Mr. Agnew, of course, David Agnew, who's going to be coordinating this for the White House, he mentioned in particular that he thought that because of the unique circumstances of history, I was in a good position to be able to be of service here. My previous service on the Resources Committee and the Armed Services Committee, and now governor in the Asia Pacific area, and including, of course, the Pacific Command of the United States military. So the jurisdiction, if you will, with regard to the task force recommendations, where Asia and the Pacific is concerned, is counting on Hawaii. And I certainly hope to be able to make a positive and complete contribution with regard to the Asia-Pacific area and what that means. For example, you have the phenomenon of El Nino and La Nina wind patterns that have effects on ocean currents in the Pacific, which has immediate effect on fisheries and on storms. Everything from typhoons and hurricanes to the patterns of fisheries and what might be involved in those changes. Combine that with the melting of polar ice caps, and you have a rather unique situation that will affect the whole world, but is uniquely associated with the Pacific Ocean. So with the help of our departments here and our very able people, we intend to make a significant contribution to an understanding of where we need to go and how we need to get there.
Governor, just last week, the governors of California, Oregon, and Washington, along with a representative of British Columbia, they formed their own pact on doing something about global warming and taking a step on this. Were we asked to be involved with that, or will there be some coordination between what you're going to be doing now?
No, but the task force, the national task force, was on the verge of being named, and so no, we weren't a part of that because they have unique circumstances with a continental coast that simply aren't applicable to islands that are surrounded by water, like Guam and Hawaii and the compact nations and Micronesia and so on. So that's the reason for that. Their coastal zone management, for example, is unique. They've included British Columbia, for example, in that. So we'll be working with. It'll be compatible, is what it'll be. It'll be integrated. Let me put it that way. But each area, each region has its own unique circumstances. The Gulf, for example, is different than what is going to have to take place in Northeast, up in the Sandy hurricane area in Northeast. So while there's individual approaches that need to be taken given regional variations, climate change nonetheless affects each of them on a global basis. So we'll try to integrate all of that.
Governor, what would be your number
But
one?
excuse me, these people, the three people behind me, are uniquely qualified to do that. They think eclectically. They do. It's really remarkable. I am, and the people of Hawaii are the direct beneficiary of the three departmental and institutional elements represented in these folks.
Governor, what would be your number one priority and recommendation for Hawaii? I know William mentioned our coral reefs and beach erosion. What would be on the top of that list, in your opinion?
I think an analysis of how the Pacific affects the rest of the world. I don't think it's fully appreciated. I don't think it's fully, I mean appreciated, I meant understood. I don't mean appreciated in a qualitative sense with regard to emotions. I meant fully comprehended and understood politically, ecologically, or otherwise. And what I mean by that is that there tends to be an emphasis, particularly because, maybe because of the geographic location of Washington on the east coast of the United States and the historic focus of attention, World War I, World War II, the Middle East, oil, tensions and political turmoil in that area. The Pacific has, and everything having to do with the Asia-Pacific region, and with the Pacific as an ocean, as a factor in the very existence of the planet in terms of climate. There simply is not a lot of knowledge about it, and there's not been a lot of focus politically. It's always been a struggle for those of us, even on the West Coast, as Chad mentioned, let alone out in the Pacific, to get people to understand what this is all about here. And when it comes to the Pacific Ocean, we know very, very little, and the attention has not been focused. So my principal contribution, I hope, will be to bring a much clearer recognition of the role that the Pacific Ocean and the Asia-Pacific region plays in climate change, and the conditions and circumstances that will have to apply in order to deal with climate change on a global basis. The key to climate change on a global basis is the Asia-Pacific region.
Governor, I wonder if I might ask another question, but about same-sex marriage. If anybody else had a question on this,
I'm not quite sure how we got from the to same-sex marriage. Are the dolphins being brought up or something? Could we do that after?
Sure, not a problem.
Yeah. I hope you're all as happy about this. Yes, you know, in the midst of all kinds of controversies and all kinds of emotional crises, of social and otherwise, that take place, we are required. Take a look here at our motto. Are we not required to exercise our good judgment with respect to our stewardship of Hawaii? And Pono has a lot of meanings, but I think it's universally agreed that if we are admonished to act in a Pono way, just something like this poster that it was not brought in for today. I have this here more or less on a permanent basis. A healthy forest equals fresh water. That is to remind us that in this particular instance, we are carrying out our duties as stewards. Whatever time we're given on this earth, we have the responsibility and the obligation to act in that manner. And so this task force opportunity is something that I will honor and give all of my best efforts to. Thank you very much. Now, and I have the approval of the first dog I see right here. Right? We're going to have a canine-friendly. That's going to be the first thing. We have to maintain a canine-friendly atmosphere in the climate. Right. So, did you want to ask something else?
Yeah, as you were probably well aware of what's going down in the basement of this very building.
Well, democracy is taking place in the basement. I'm serious about that.
I wondered if you might comment on that process. Are you concerned at all that it may take too long for this to happen? The estimate of testifiers right now is quite limited.
No, the measure of our democracy is our commitment to it. And if that involves a great length of time, that means a lot of people want to participate. So that to me is a very positive sign. No, not everybody's going to be in agreement about everything associated with it, and our job as legislators and my job as governor is to try to take into account then the weight of the testimony that's being given in terms of what our obligations are constitutionally. And I think if you can boil everything down there, it's a question of how do you provide equal opportunities to everybody, and at the same time make sure that those beliefs, particularly those religious in origin, that people have, are also protected and respected and honored. Now, that's the job of government, to try and work that out. Now, we're human beings. We all have our failings and shortcomings, but I do not think that anyone can cite a failing or a shortcoming in the legislature, because the legislature is giving every effort to try not only to comprehend and understand what people's views are and positions are, but how they can translate that into legislation that will honor our constitutional obligations. And I think that's what's taking place. And I have every confidence that the resulting legislation will reveal that. And that while not everybody may be satisfied with the outcome of the legislation, everybody will by any objective standard, will have to conclude that it was based on good faith and good motivation, and that the whatever legislation appears will be respectful of everybody's rights.
You remain confident that you're going to get a bill that you would like to sign?
Yes, I am. I've listened. I haven't listened necessarily all night long to the testimony, because among other things, I got the opportunity to hear how people felt about 1 o'clock this morning as they kept up the sign holding and waving and all the rest of it. So everybody's participating in their own way, and I think everything's had a thorough review, but. A part of democracy also is coming to a conclusion, and I think the conclusion will be one that honors our admonition to try to accommodate everybody's point of view in terms of their rights as well as their obligations. We're obligated to honor differing views, and I think that the legislature is working diligently to see that that's accomplished. I don't consider anybody as prolonging the process. I just, you mean as a tactic, or that if something goes on a long time, it'll attenuate or something like that? I think the views are so strongly held in this, I can't imagine that a long time will lessen anybody's determination to bring it to a conclusion. It'll just take a while longer because there's a lot of people testifying. So at some point, I believe they set a time limit for signing up. And I think that was at midnight yesterday. So whoever was signed up by midnight yesterday, it's a lot like voting, right? I mean, it's the same thing as voting. Everybody's in line by 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock or whatever the time is, gets to vote. Now, if you come at 8:10, okay, sorry, we closed at 8. So they set the time. Everybody came. They signed up. They're going to be heard. That's democracy. I'm quite content with it.
As you're listening to much of the testimony, by a rough estimate, it appears that 60 to 40%, 60 opposing this bill, and with that said, having the people's voice being, strongly heard yesterday. All hours of the day yesterday. Has that at all changed your opinion of what your belief is on this bill, and if it was passed as it is now?
No, you don't measure. You never measure the quality or the content of testimony by numbers. You look at what's being said. If you're going to be respectful of people's views, you don't do it by numbers. I mean, if a Tom Paine or a Thomas Jefferson, or a Martin Luther King Jr., or an Abraham Lincoln, a Fannie Lou Hamer at the Democratic Convention in the 1960s stands up and is able to give you an insight that you did not previously comprehend. It doesn't matter whether there's 10,000 views in another direction. If that one strikes home as giving an insight or a perspective that didn't exist before. So I listen to the testimony not in terms of what the numbers may be, but in the motivation, the perspective, the content of what's being said. That's how you be respectful as a legislator, is you listen to what's being said and try to hear what's being said. That's not always the same thing. You try to hear what people are saying as well, and then you make your judgment. So I'm impressed with the sincerity and the conviction of all of the testimony. I always try to bring to that, and I think all the legislators are bringing to that an openness and not just a willingness, but an eagerness to have everybody's point of view heard.
Your opinion, the same-sex marriage is a civil rights issue, and is there something wrong with letting civil rights issues be decided by a majority vote?
Well, I wish we could get some majority votes in the Congress of the United States. I don't know. You're probably talking to the wrong venue. I have no indication whatsoever that there won't be a majority vote on this issue in this special session. Yeah, there'll be a majority vote, and whatever that vote comes out is what the legislation will be.
What about like a
Thank you.
popular vote based on the people? Like, do you think there's something wrong with letting civil rights issues be decided by a popular vote by the people?
Well, no, you can't decide rights. I'm not quite sure what you mean. What do you mean a popular vote? You mean is a civil right popular? No, I don't think you decide whether something's popular or not. For one thing, that would violate the First Amendment. The First Amendment says that you have a right to have an unpopular view. So surely you wouldn't be, I don't mean you personally, but surely someone who's espousing that wouldn't say it's what we ought to have a popular vote to see whether we want to put Japanese Americans in detention camps in 1941. I don't think we want to. That's not something that you vote on. You don't take someone's basic constitutional right and set it aside. I don't think, for example, you can take a vote and say that if someone holds a particular religious belief that we don't like, we're not going to allow them to exercise their views. That's what this bill is all about. This bill really, is less about public accommodations or even equal rights, so much as it's make sure that the equal rights of those who hold religious beliefs, which may cause them to have a different point of view with regard to same-sex marriage, are able to exercise those views and not be adversely affected. That's what the legislature is trying to do. So the vote's going to be taken on protecting everyone's rights, not on trying to take some rights away from a particular group. That's the glory of the Constitution. You look to the protection of the individual as well as the obligations of the whole. Thank you.
Information.